Wait a second. Are these the same Democrats that we heard from during the election year of 2020? Now suddenly Democrats don't want to close down businesses, don't want to close down schools. I wonder what that's really about. Maybe, just maybe, midterms has something to do with it. Maybe what we saw out of Virginia just has something to do with it. I mean, you've got Omicron surging. There's now talk of an Omicron Delta variant, and yet Democrats suddenly are all about going back to work. I mean, hey, I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth, right? It's great that they want the economy open. It's great that they want schools open. I'm just trying to understand, what's fueling this. And I think we all know what's fueling this. Just a quick reminder, by the way, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. If you are not following me on Locals, I want you to go and do that right now. trishregan.locals.com, a new site where we have the chance to really talk about all these things that, well, we can't talk about on some of these other things. I mean, I'm always in trouble on these other platforms, but that's one place where we can really actually speak openly and freely. So I encourage you to do that. In the meantime, though, I want to go back to what this is really about, right? What are the Democrats trying to get at other than just more votes? Because listen to Lori Lightfoot. She's the mayor of Chicago. She's furious, as she should be. By the way, this is the one thing I've maintained all along. You cannot shut a society down for this. You need to learn to live with it. Well, the Chicago Teachers Union just walked off the job. Third largest school district in the country. And this is what the Democrat mayor has to say.
And to be clear, what the Chicago Teachers Union did was an illegal walkout. They abandoned their posts and they abandoned kids and their families. We are working diligently every single day at the bargaining table to narrow the differences and to get a deal done. My team has been working every single day. They're back at it again here Sunday. They were at it yesterday. And we can get a deal done if there's goodwill on both sides.
That's the question. Is there really goodwill on both sides? Now, again, keep in mind politics is fueling this. Lori Lightfoot, the woman who, by the way, told us, you couldn't go get your hair done during COVID, during the thick of it back in spring 2020, except that she needed her hair done. She could get her hair done, right? Because she was, quote unquote, well, actually, just quote, because she actually said this, I am the face of Chicago. So she needed her hair done. Nobody else could get it done. Anyway, now she's coming out and saying it's an illegal strike. They never should have done this, that the teachers union was wrong to go to remote schooling. And I agree with her, but I just want you to think about what's really fueling this. And I'm going to tell you, unfortunately, this all comes right down to politics. It's not actually about what's good for the kids and what's good for the students, because if it were, then Lori Lightfoot would have been all over this way back when. No, instead, it's what is good for Lori and her party. She's getting support, of course, from the White House and the talking heads, including the former mayor of Chicago's brother, Dr. Zeke Emanuel, is out voicing his support. I agree with him here, but I want you to hear it.
That we have our priorities upside down when we think dining in restaurants, going to football games, going to basketball games are more important than having schools open.
Right. You can say that again, right? And yet this is the first we're hearing of it. What took so long? Where were you guys? I mean, this has been the story all along. This is what I have insisted on from the very beginning. You cannot, if you're going to fight this thing, you cannot just shut down your economy, shut down your society, shut down your schools, which is shutting down your future, if you're going to have any chance. You need to learn to live with it. As challenging, as difficult as that is, you cannot just shut everything down. And yet, what did we see over and over again? They were shutting things down while they had their priorities all kind of weirdly aligned, as Zeke Emanuel points out, right? Like somehow you could go out to a bar or to a restaurant, but you couldn't go to school. So now everybody's on the bandwagon now saying, we got to open schools, we got to open schools. Gavin Newsom, governor of California, is saying we're going to have the Super Bowl in LA no matter what, no matter how bad Omicron is, it's happening. Well, you know what? It should, because again, I've said this all along. People need to make decisions for themselves. They will make informed decisions as to whether or not they think their kids can go to school or whether they can go to the Super Bowl based on their own tolerance for risk. The reality is the American public doesn't have the appetite for this anymore. They never did, frankly. I mean, they were just sort of put in a total state of fear, which I blame the mainstream media for initially. And so instead of being able to approach this practically, and with some kind of, head on our shoulders, we just completely freaked out as a society, shut everything down. And you know what? Our kids today, think of the disadvantage that they have been put at. And you talk about kids at a disadvantage. I mean, the inner city of Chicago, for goodness sakes. It's like third world territory in some parts of Chicago because of the violence, because of the crime. What do those kids need more than anything? School. And yet, typical Democrats, they don't like voucher schools. They don't like anything that might actually be for the kids because they've always historically been with the teachers union. So then suddenly now they're presented with this whole huge, massive dilemma. And finally, because of their own self-interest, they're realizing they cannot come out on the side of the teachers union. She wants to get a deal done. I don't know. I mean, there's part of me that really questions the motivations of some of these teachers. I would say, hopefully people go into teaching for the right reasons, but there are plenty of people, let's be honest, who go into it because you get summers off and a great vacation schedule and terrific benefits. Plus, you're out at 3 every day. All right? It's not a bad lifestyle job. Now, there are amazing teachers out there. I had a few of them. I think my kids have a lot of them. But that said, the teachers in Chicago, I mean, I can't imagine doing this. I do think it's an illegal strike. And I can't imagine leaving students high and dry like they're doing right now. Again, this should be a student's decision. For goodness sakes, they're all supposed to be vaccinated, right? Vaccinated and boosted anyway, all of those teachers. And yet, any excuse, shall we say, not to work? I mean, there's talk all over the nation right now of teachers having Fridays off or at-home Fridays, where you just zoom in on Fridays. I am telling you, if we are not careful, we are going to lose an entire generation, because you have a generation that's not growing up in society, in the norms of society. They're growing up on computer screens. And it's just wrong. Look, the Democrats are doomed as a result of this and many, many other things in 2022. I don't see how they're going to overcome it. They can try and spin it however they want. They can get Lori Lightfoot out there and Dr. Zeke Emanuel and others saying, you know what, we're not going to close things down. But the reality is people are holding them accountable. They're holding them accountable for school closures. They're holding them accountable for the inflation, the mass inflation. We're getting more reads on that this week in our economy. They're holding them accountable for the mess that we have in foreign affairs, whether it be Afghanistan or whether it be Ukraine. Big meetings going on with Russia regarding Ukraine, both the U.S. and NATO having those meetings this week. I'm going to have more on tomorrow's podcast about all of that. But look, I mean, I question sometimes whether we're ever going to be able to make it back from the mess Joe Biden and team have dug us into as a result of their foreign policy, which has just been lousy. And then, of course, there's our economy, which is really questionable at this point. I mean, what a weird phenomenon to have 3.9% unemployment, more than 4 million people walking off the jobs again in November, and yet everybody really terrified about inflation. In fact, 68% of Americans say the economy is their biggest worry right now, far exceeding, more than double, the number of people that say Omicron. You know, inflation is here. Inflation is real. Inflation is getting worse. I know the Fed is scrambling to try and do something about it, but whether or not they can do something in time, I think is really debatable. Not to mention our long-term overhang of a problem. I mean, massive amounts of debt, massive amounts of spending that we cannot afford. I don't know where the end game is, but I can tell you this. The value of your U.S. dollar is going to continue declining in this kind of environment this year and for years to come, which is one of the reasons why I keep saying diversify your portfolio, diversify your holdings, and when you're diversifying, take a good hard look at gold. One of the sponsors of this program, Legacy Precious Metals, their website is legacypminvestments.com. They can help you do this. I know these guys, they're great. I promise you they will totally hook you up if you call them. Just use my name, 1-866-589-0560. Again, that's 1-866-589-0560. I encourage you to do that because I think it's really important right now for you to have this diversification. in light of all the inflation that's coming our way. Look, gold is real. Gold is something that's tangible. You can actually hold it. You can put $1 million worth of gold. Do you know that? In a shoebox. I learned that recently. I was just blown away. So this is stuff that you can have and you can have forever. They can help you at Legacy PM Investments. They can help you figure out whether you want to go back to IRA, whether you want the actual real stuff, you know, in your basement somewhere. But they can help walk you through all that. So give them a call, 1-866-589-0560, 1-866-589-0560, legacypminvestments.com. The reality is, though, we have inflation that isn't going away. You're going to see that data reflected this week with all the reports coming out. You've got a mess of a situation in Afghanistan and Ukraine, and I don't know whether or not this nation is really in a position where it's going to be able to recover, and whether we can even have the honest conversations that we need to be having in order for us to recover. This wokeism nonsense has taken over the world, taken over what you see being released because of big tech's constant supervision of what's out there. And so I have real questions right now. I really do. I don't know if the nation, I mean, I would say I'd like to believe that fundamentally, yes, we can recover from this, but I think damage is being done right now as we speak by this administration, and it's really critical. It's really critical that the tide turn both in 2022 and in 2024. Do me this favor, go to trishregan.locals.com, sign up for my page there. You can become a supporter of this show right there, get special access to me. Go to trishintel.com as well, trishintel.com, where you can download my podcast there and subscribe to my newsletter. Listen, there is a lot that has to be done right now. And Chicago's just one example of it. This is happening all over the nation. I think people are upset enough that you're going to see a real change come 2022. But it's important that we keep sending that message. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'm going to see you back here tomorrow.